Hey everyone. I wanted to do a third and perhaps final video talking about the differences between the devotional Christianity I grew up with and the Tantric Christianity I currently practice, and just talk about some of the tools that I have developed that I've kind of discovered it's important to maintaining serenity that I use them. You'll probably have your own list, but this is my list of important tools that I need to use daily. For better or for worse, I am a teacher from way back, and when my students asked how are we going to remember this, I would always give them a silly sentence to help them remember what I am asking them to remember. And so I'm going to use one today in this video. The silly sentence is, go start remembering grace should instill mercy. The word, and the principle is that the word in the sentence starts with the same letter as whatever I'm asking you to remember. And it's just a little mnemonic device. The word go starts with the same letter as giving up self. Anything you use I, me, and my in reference to is self. And as useful as it may be in the mid-range, in the long term, it might cost you more than it's worth. So giving up self is one of the main tasks of Christian Tantra. The word start starts with the same letter as scripture. There is no too much when you are imbibing scripture for your own betterment instead of to perpetuate your superegoic shame complex. I will put on scripture in my earphones as I'm doing dishes, and all I'm doing is planting seeds that later, in times of crisis, those bits of scripture will bubble up on their own at the prompting of the Spirit. There is no too much in terms of imbibing scripture in healthy ways for your own reasons. Remembering starts with the same letter as recollection. Recollection is simply reclaiming your attention and intention from all of the sensory information that you have chased after. Television, radio, internet. Sorry, guys. All of that, right? At some point, you have to recognize that that is taking you away from yourself and take back those bits of your attention and intention. Why? Because too much of that negatively affects serenity. You have to be able to come back to yourself. The word grace starts with the same letter as grief. Getting up in the morning is a piece of grief if you dread the responsibilities of the coming day. Your own death is a piece of grief. The traumatic and violent death of the teacher, if you follow Jesus, that's a piece of grief. All of those pieces of grief literally get stored in your body. Oh, and there's also a good bit of grief that comes from the difference between how you would like life to be and how it really is. So all of that gets stored in your body, and grief is simply the process of mindfully going into that and going through the steps of going from denial to acceptance. The word should starts with the same letter as shadow work. We like to be acceptable and have our ducks in a row, right? But in order to do that, we repress and we other stuff that, if we're honest with ourselves, is very much a part of ourselves. We have the capacity for great evil. We have the capacity for just coping and living in denial, right? And shadow work is just the active work of consciously going into the ways we've done that and maybe bringing them to light and deciding whether that is serving us well. The word instill in Go Start Remembering Grace Should Instill Mercy is imitation, intimacy, and internalization. These are the steps of bringing into ourselves a teaching or a teacher. If you follow Jesus, as I follow him, some of the work is just doing what he did so that you will know what he knows. Imitation. When Christ says, come and see, going and seeing. Okay, intimacy is come and see in the other direction. It's you saying, I have this experience, come into it with me. And so you sort of create a picture of Jesus in your head, and it becomes sort of the imaginative work of bringing Jesus into all aspects of your incarnation, the work responsibility that you hate, the test you're afraid of, the difference between you and a spouse that bugs you. That's intimacy. You're encountering that not on your own, but with Christ. And then the final step is internalization. It can feel a lot very often like the absence of God. But internalization is when God looks out on the world with your eyes, when God uses your ears to hear, when God uses your hands to touch. He's not over there so that we can see him. He's right here and we can't see him, but it's because he is so close, not because he's absent. The word mercy helps us to remember mantra. Mantra is important because we have these negative core beliefs about ourselves that run our reactions to things. And mantra is specifically chosen bits of scripture that counteract our negative core beliefs. And what we do is we pick those and we use them consciously, constantly throughout the day. I will just have it going in my head as I'm stocking shelves at my crummy job. And it helps me to slowly work with, slowly accept the dynamics of my own selfishness, which I would normally judge and reject. But if I can say that the things that I would normally judge and reject are things that I need to sort of work with in the light of the scriptures, then I have the tools with which to accept them. Mantra is the ongoing work of just using the words of scripture as your point of focus during this grieving process, whereby you, instead of repressing what's inside of you, come to accept it. Those are the tools that I use on a daily basis that I add to all other bits of Christianity and religion that I find useful. I hope you find them useful too. I wish you all a great deal of peace. Thanks for listening.